Federal Executive Council approves 895.5 billion naira supplementary budget for military and others. Nigeria launches first made Nigeria cell phone. House of Representatives directs CBN to halt further devaluation of naira. And oil prices fall on Thursday as Brent drops by 0.5%. This is Business Express from the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And now we begin with fact meeting. The Federal Executive Council has approved the 2021 supplementary appropriation bill of 895.8 billion naira for presentation to the National Assembly for approval. This is to, among others, procure COVID-19 vaccines as well as enhance the capacity of the nation's military and paramilitary agencies to tackle the challenges of security bedeviling the country. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, announced this while briefing journalists after the meeting of the Council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
It also contains the sum of 1.69 billion for the Nigeria Comprehensive AIDS Program that is currently operating in the states, and an additional contingency provision of 40 billion under the public service-wide wage adjustments to take care of the needs for allowances to the health sector, to the education sector, and other wage-related issues. This is an incremental provision over the 100 billion that is already provided in the 2021 budget.
For the defense and security sector, 770.60 billion naira has been approved towards addressing the current security challenges in the country.
This approval also contains an approval to borrow the sum of 722.53 billion for security expenditures, and these are the capital component of the security expenditure in the absence of any other additional supplementary sources of borrowing. This borrowing will be done from the domestic international capital.
And talking technology innovation, President Muhammadu Buhari has received the first made in Nigeria cell phone, known as ITF Mobile. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Adini Adebayo, presented the phone to the President before the commencement of the Federal Executive Council. On FEC meeting on Wednesday, Adebayo said the phone is one of the 12 produced using locally sourced components by the Electronic Technology Department of the Industrial Training Fund's ITF Model Skills Training Center. In other business news development, the House of Representatives has directed the Central Bank of Nigeria to urgently put in place a policy to check further devaluation of the naira to the United States dollar and other international legal tenders. The House directed its Committee on Banking and Currency to ensure compliance and report back to the House in 2 weeks for further legislative action. The resolutions followed a motion of urgent public importance by Bamidele Salam on Wednesday. The Central Bank Governor, Godwin Emefiele, had earlier informed the committee about the naira's devaluation against the dollar. this week upgraded its economic growth focus for Nigeria in 2021 to 1.8% based on higher oil prices, structural oil sector reforms, and market-based flexible exchange rate management. This is as contained in the World Bank's latest global economic prospects. The bank also projects the global economy is expected to expand 5.6% in 2021, the fastest post-recession pace in 80 years, largely on strong rebounds from a few major economies. To shed light on the World Bank's parameters is Ayodeji Abel, an economist with Chapel Hill, Denham. He joins us from Lagos. Hello, Mr. Abel. Thank you for joining us on Business Express.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Okay, this projection 0.7% higher than 1.1% projected by the World Bank in January. What changed from January to June, or should we say to May?
Okay, very interesting. I think if we look at what has happened or the development between January and today, you will discover that firstly, you look at the spread of COVID-19. As at then, we've not started the vaccination, and we've also seen that numbers have tapered significantly. Secondly, if you also look at oil prices, it's increased significantly, above $70 a barrel currently, and that would support our earnings compared to where it was, I think, around the $40 barrels level in January. Beyond that, we've also seen the GDP figures. We've seen that, yes, at least we've been able to register another positive, consecutively second positive growth rate, though still very weak, but at least showing some signs. So, and when you look at it also from the global space, we've seen that the vaccination, the percentage of vaccination to population has continued to grow, and economies are also opening up. So that's part of what I think, the optimism that we saw from World Bank increasing our projected growth rate from 0.7% in January to 1.8% for 2021, and from 0.3% in January for 2022 to 2.1% for 2022, Nigeria's growth rate. But you see, like you rightly highlighted, they are premised on certain conditions happening. They've looked at oil prices, that is if they remain high at this level. Secondly, they spoke about reforms in the oil and gas sector. And thirdly, they talked about a market-based foreign exchange management. These are some of the factors they have premised their assumptions on. But there are also other factors that were not factored in, which may be a major drag on the expectation. Insecurity is also a key factor. For us to be able to grow, we need output to increase. When you dissect the GDP, we look at what agri constitute. Insecurity is also a major blow within that space. So, by and large, I believe that yes, based on these assumptions, the projection is very optimistic, but it will be premised on these assumptions.
Okay, do you see the country meeting the growth target or even surpassing it?
Well, it's not impossible to surpass it, but it's also still going to come back to what we'll have to do. So it's not just going to happen overnight. It's going to be based on what we are able to achieve, based on some of these assumptions. Are we able to tame insecurity such that we're able to, we have foreign investors have confidence to come and set up their companies here so that we can generate more jobs? Within the agri space, are we able to also tame insecurity within that space so that we can increase our output? Even if we cannot export as much, we should be able to at least provide and reduce in terms of the prices of food as quantity increase, which would impact on food inflation. So I think it's even 3%, 4%, it's not impossible. It's just based on the processes and the actions that both the fiscal authorities and the monetary authorities, yes, they're trying their best, but we currently we need to push hard, because it's like a chicken and egg situation, that which one should come first. But if we don't generate more employment, we don't increase production, then insecurity too would also be very tough for us to be able to bring to almost a zero level. So we need to see what we can do within that particular space. So for me, I would, or for us, we believe it's achievable, but it's going to be premised on a lot of actions.
Okay, the World Bank also upgraded its economic forecast for sub-Saharan Africa to 2.8% from 2.7% projected in January. Is that to say the ripple effects of the pandemic are almost out?
Very correct. Like what you have said, when you look at the impact of COVID, it's already fading out. And based on also the vaccination, economies are also opening up, and that would support supports the forecast. You know, like I mentioned earlier, this is a forecast on a review on the projection in January, and a lot of things have happened since then. And I believe that they rightly acknowledge that a lot of even sub-Saharan Africans or developing economies are still trying to suffer that impact. Even you see for Nigeria, in terms of the revenue loss, we are still trying to say how we want to recoup that. Businesses are still trying to come up and stabilize. So it's same thing across nations, and when you look at it across sub-Saharan Africa, a lot of these countries are also carrying a lot of debt, and their current revenue is also unable to absolutely even service, and talk less of living much that for development.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ayodeji Ebo, economist with Chapel Hill, Denham.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now moving on, Otumbade Adewesu has been in the business of photography for more than 12 years. He has seen the ups and downs of the job. This was supposed to be his year because he had spotted some positive trends, but the COVID-19 came with other plans. Things are a lot better for his business now, but he feels his photo studio could use some funding support. Moplan Dakok has his story on our Surviving COVID-19 segment.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
We know many businesses were affected with the COVID-19, especially during the lockdown. How was it for your photo studio?
Thank you so much. The COVID-19 affected us as in seriously. You know, as a photographer and a videographer, we could not, there's no wedding, there's no event, there's no ceremony, there's no naming ceremony, there's nothing, there's no wedding, as in everything was standstill. You understand? It make everything not to move forward.
Business Express also wanted to know how the business is adapting to the challenges of these difficult times.
The period we have right now is that the events gradually pick up. Okay. You understand? People still scared of COVID-19. Even some wedding that I covered recently, the hall can take more than 500. They make sure say the hall was below of 200. You understand? That thing still affect us to the extent that many people that are supposed to do a big wedding, big ceremony, they still manage to do the way they need to do. It still affects us. Before, we are nine. With me, we are 10. You know, 9 workers. Now, we are just 5.
More than a year after the COVID-19 pandemic began, small businesses across the country have had support from different interventions, but many more are still seeking financial assistance Otumba's studio is hopeful.
I've been trying to get a fund, but nowhere to get it. Go to people's shop, go to people's office that's running. These are the people that are supposed to get a fund.
You heard it from Otumba Day. He looks forward to that day when the central bank itself will visit his shop to access how much he needs the funds so that they can give it to him on the spot.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Thank you, Moplang. The huge investment partnership and benefits accruing from the Nigeria International Petroleum Summit, key players say has continued to present in-country value across the entire value chains with low-hanging fruits and long-term benefits that will reposition the Nigerian oil and gas sector narrative. Leader Samson reports.
Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, Beatrice Bako Nabasu says it is even more gratifying because government resources are not deployed in the organization of the summit since inception.
The benefits are numerous. First and foremost, let me enlighten you that Nigerian government does not spend a kobo in the preparation, in the organization of this summit. Rather, we benefit because I know the previous 3 editions, there were remittances from this summit to the Federation account.
This roundtable on investment opportunities kick-started a discussion on the landscape of opportunities and projections with a view to harnessing lessons learned for a proactive future for the industry.
The very fundamental of every national oil company is energy security. And it's not perfect. Energy security is the nucleus of all forms of security. Food security, health security, cyber security, just name it. Together, they determine how strong, how robust the energy security of a country is.
We've seen where we had disruptions. We had disruptions in our supply chains. We had disruptions when it came to operations, and we had disruptions and delays for projects. So now, as we are sitting down to sort of mitigate these risks that we have now not perceived, but actual and real risks which happened, we should now be building into these processes the resilience needed and agility needed to ensure that we don't have such a negative impact like we did.
There were a lot of opportunities that were opened during COVID, and which we need to capitalize on even going forward.
The stakeholders agree targeted capacity building, harnessing the opportunities that the digitization of the oil and gas sector present remain critical.
In addition to ongoing exhibition by various entities and targeted presentations, key players at the ongoing Nigeria International Petroleum Summit are unanimous that presentations from here will be setting agenda on the way to go for the oil and gas industry. In Abuja, Lydia Samson.
Meanwhile, oil prices fell on Thursday as inventory data in the United States, the world's top oil consumer, showed a surge in gasoline stocks that indicated weaker than expected fuel demand. Brent crude oil futures were down 0.5% at $71.86 a barrel, while U.S. oil futures declined by 0.5% to $69.61 a barrel. Analysts say markets had been optimistic on demand as the U.S. enters the peak summer driving season. Vaccinations and rising traffic numbers are a plus for demand for transportation fuel. Precious gold slips on firmer dollar as markets wait for ECB decision. U.S. data. Let's see price of other commodities on the global market scene. And now to capital market. Equities market closed Wednesday trading session on positive. Investors gained 150.76 billion naira as NGX all-share index closed above 39,000 basis points. The all-share index climbed 0.74% to close 39,170.95 basis points and market capitalization at 20.4 trillion naira. 181.5 million shares valued at 3.96 billion naira were traded in 3,217 deals. Zenith, Sterling and Guarantee Trust Bank are the most traded shares with a combined volume of 55.1 million shares valued at 939.9 million naira. Now, major shares across the globe hold range this Thursday as investors eye U.S. consumer price inflation. Over to Bosade Eba for a look at how stocks are performing this Thursday.
Global markets are predominantly focused on the U.S. inflation data due to be out Thursday. European stocks are expected to open slightly higher on Thursday as global market geared up for the latest inflation reading from the U.S. London FTSE is seen opening 8 points higher at 7,087. Germany's DAX 9 points higher at 15,601, and France's CAC 40 was up 5 points at 6,571. Shares in Asia Pacific rose in Thursday trade as investors looked ahead to an upcoming release of U.S. inflation data for May. The Shanghai Composite gained 0.47%. Hang Seng Index dropped 0.1%, while the Nikkei was 0.34% higher. In the United States, futures contracts tied to the major U.S. stock indices rose during the overnight session Wednesday evening as investors eyed a key inflation report due out Thursday. Dow futures advanced 42 points, while those tied to the S&P 500 added 0.1%, while Nasdaq 100 contracts were mostly flat. For Africa, markets are yet to post figures as at the time of this report. Bosade Ebo, Business Express.
Now, before we go, let's bring you up to speed on the exchange rate this Thursday morning. With that, we end this edition of Business Express. Remember to keep in touch with us by sending in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also, be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NT's channel. Join us again on Friday at 3 p.m. for another episode. I am Musa Abubakar.